It actually weighs a little bit. It's not exactly lightweight. And here it is. Wow, this is a serious piece of kit. And what is remaining? Okay. I'm going to put these things on a scale. I'm sure this whole kit weighs at least, I'd say 50 pounds or so. It's not light at all. One thing, this hitch smells fresh paint. They build these hitches to order. They say that there's a waiting time of 6 weeks, but this one came in about, I'd say 2.5 weeks. I'll need to double check just to make sure. Okay, the first step we have to do is to remove the rear bumper. And what we have to do is undo 5 bolts. That's 1, there's the second one, 3, 4, and the 5th one there. These are 8mm bolts. Okay, and as with all these jobs, first thing you should do is store all these bits safely so that they don't get lost. Yeah, so the next things that need to come out are the 3 studs over here and the splash guard. Now, trying to pull them out is really hard. So what I discovered is, if you pull out the splash guard and give a tug on it, they'll start to pop out. So I wedged it out and then just started pulling, and they're slowly starting to come out. Let's see if I can get these ones out. See how they work out. Yeah, that one's popped out. So there's just one remaining. Is there one remaining? I think there is. So there are the studs removed. So the last thing to do is now just to tug on this bumper. Apparently you have to tug really hard and it'll just snap off. Alright, then you just need to disconnect all the connectors for the bulbs. Okay. So according to the instructions, which really suck if I haven't mentioned that before, the U-bolt is meant to go over this bumper support. See this rod over here? And then you're meant to attach it to this bracket. So put that in there first, attach it, and then later on we're going to attach it to this cross member. But what I'm going to try is I'm going to first bolt these brackets to the cross member and then try and insert it in here. I think there's enough space to maneuver everything into place. So before I start bolting everything into place, I just wanted to give you a quick inventory of the hardware that comes with this kit. Now this is the cross member, and then this is the hitch. These are the screws. So these 4 bolts will go over here, and they will use these washers between the bolts, and these are the captive nuts that go with them. These 2 will attach the hitch to the cross member, and of course they go with the captive nuts and the washers as well. And these U-bolts will attach this cross member through these. I don't know whether it's going to be this way or this way. I'll figure out when I get to that part of the install. To the bumper supports, and they go with these washers. There are 4 of these washers and 4 of these nuts. So 2 washers per U-bolt and 2 nuts. Here, and then this is a detachable attachment for towing. So this will be off the car unless you really need to use it. I should mention that I did take some approximate weight of all this equipment, And this stuff over here, the stuff that will be permanently attached to your car, is about 32 pounds. And this detachable Tow Hitch member is about 8 pounds. So you'll be driving with an extra 32 pounds on your car. So this nut will go into this washer, goes in here, goes through another washer on the other side. So one washer there, another washer there, and then the captive nut on the top. So I've tried a dry fit, and the way it goes is this way. You can see this, the flat side is on the outer side, and surely enough the curvature inside the panel prevents you from putting it the other way around, so they have to go in this way. Too many boy racers in the background. So this is where we are at the moment. We've got the bracket attached. And you just might be able to see the U-bolt securing the brackets inside there. Now these, I can see why they want you to put this bracket over here first before attaching it to the cross member, putting it inside here. And that's because accessing these bolts over here, the U-bolts, is a total pain in the butt. In fact, now the next challenge is to try and find a way to tighten them within that very limited space. Let me give it a go. Okay, the frustration level is rising. The problem is I just can't get in there to tighten these U-bolts. So what I'm saying I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to remove this section of the bumper. I can see that I can remove these bolts, and maybe if I take off this tab over here, this stud, I might be able to get this piece and get to another bolt in here, and that way this bumper section can come off and I can actually get in there and tighten those U-bolts. Otherwise I just don't see how it's going to happen. I must be doing something wrong, because according to the instructions in it doesn't sound like they had to remove this section of the bumper, but I'm at a loss here. One thing that they said would be necessary in the instructions is to loosen exhaust and drop it down. I haven't had the need to do that. Okay, just to show you how you can get this styrofoam pads out, I just leverage it out with a screwdriver. You just got to go under here and then leverage it. Be careful and it pops out. As usual, keep all these things in a Ziploc bag so you don't get lost. So now all I have to do is just remove these 3 bolts on each side. Okay, as you see, I've removed the bumper. I'd highly recommend that you remove these things as soon as you got the nuts loosened, because that bumper slips off very easily and will snap off these things if you don't remove them. Very easy to take off. Just press on this and it will slip out. Okay, so we've got a much better view of how the hitch bracket is mounted. You can see the U-bolt in here going over the bumper mount. So what I want to do now is I want to get the brackets mounted in the proper position by aligning them with this. And then once I got them in the right position, I really want them to be as close to the panel as possible, so that they don't have leverage to bend these bumper supports. So I've done a rough fitting and well, just a rough positioning, just by putting this where I think it's going to go, and I determined a few things. First thing is that this is going to be pushed away from this heat shield enough that it's not going to touch it. The second thing is that there is about a 1/4 inch clearance between the nut and the exhaust pipe that it seems as if they're not going to touch. And the third thing is that this hitch is going to be at a slight angle but it should be okay. So this nut is very hard to get to. I'm using a socket extension to tighten it, and you see I'm going to tighten it with the bracket away from the body as much as possible, and then the final few turns I'm going to push the U bracket as close to the body as possible. Okay, the bolts are tightened. Make sure that these spaces are equal on either side. So what I did is I just pushed it as far as I could go and held the bracket there. So make sure that they're equally spaced on either side of the bumper so that the mounting is not skewed. And make sure to tighten to the stock specifications. I think it's about 65 pound-feet. Now this thing is pretty stiff, but there is enough play where I can adjust it a few fractions of an inch in order to align it properly. And it looks like this is going to have to be pushed a little bit forward. And sure enough, it can adjust. You can adjust it just by pushing it so that the holes align. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to have to push it a little bit more. Yeah. So this cross member is tightened enough where even though I adjusted the position of this, it's still tight enough at the U-locks. So the next step is to put back the bumper. Make sure everything over here is properly tightened. Make sure all your nuts are properly done so that nothing's going to come loose. When returning the bumper, I noticed that it uses thread lock, so please make sure to use some thread lock when putting back these bolts. So the bumper is back on. It snaps on very easily. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to undo these two bolts over here. I've already mounted the trailer hitch. I put back the screws. I haven't tightened them. So next thing to do is mark the holes that I'll have to drill through the bumper through here. So before I do that, I'll first make sure that the holes where I'll have to screw back the nuts that hold the bumper, the bolts that hold the bumper are aligned. Then once that is done, I'll mark the holes and then drill through there. So now I've marked where the holes are going to be. I'm going to go ahead. You see I've removed the hitch, and I'm going to go ahead and drill the pilot holes. Okay, now the pilot holes are drilled. I'm going to enlarge them. And this is a 5/8 drill that I'm using. Well, my error is, for your benefit. As you can see, I drilled the holes in the wrong place. I don't mind too much because this is all hidden. But the big problem was aligning them in this axis. So you can see they were offset. So I had to drill other holes in the right place. So the next thing to do, put back the bracket, the tow hitch bracket, put it in place. I will probably put in these nuts first, these bolts first, before I tighten the main hitch so that the bumper is at least aligned properly. And then once I do that, I'll put this bolt through here. But from what I can tell, there are 8 of these washers left. So one washer goes at the bottom over here. 2 washers, at least from what I can tell in the instructions, go between the bumper and the other bracket, and then the last washer goes right on top. So I put in the hitch by hand at the back over here, and I've tightened these nuts by hand, and you can see there's quite a bit of play, so I can adjust this so that I can get the holes in the right position. So now I'm all set to put in the bolt, and that is the final piece for this hitch. So I'm going to tighten it a little bit. As you can see, I just put these in by hand. I'm going to see how much I can tighten these, and then I'm going to tighten everything up once it all fits in. Okay, here's the latest in what has happened. In order to get the washers between the the bumper and the cross member. I had to remove this one temporarily. Then I placed these in, and then once these were loose, hand tightened, then I secured this back to make sure the bumper is in the right position. It turned out to be a lot easier than I thought it would. You know, pushing in the washers between the bumper and the cross member. What I did is I slipped them in, and then I used this to center them in the hole. Then once they were centered, then I pushed this bolt in through. Tightening was not a difficult thing. You can actually reach in behind here, and what I did is I used a spanner to hold the nut inside while I tightened the outside. Then now I've also tightened this, so pretty much the hitch is in place. That is really the full install of the hitch. So all I have to do is now complete attaching the rest of the bolts to hold the bumper in place. Make sure all my washers are in place, and of course you have to make sure that all your bolts are properly tightened. Don't under tighten them, but also don't over tighten them. If you have a torque wrench, look for the proper torque specifications. The Uhaul give specifications for these bolts. I think they're something like 75 pound-feet, but just double check your instructions. So after some blood, sweat, and some really unhelpful instructions from the Uhaul installation guide, the tow hitch is now installed. That's the final result. And it's a little bit more than 1 inch into the bumper. Just to give you an idea of where its final resting place is. This is the other piece that came with the kit. You can get some use out of it. Maybe it's meant to go that way. I'm not a trailer guy. Then of course you got the quarter pin and the pin to secure it in. So this is how the kit looks with the car on the ground. You can see the tow hitch, but it's not really noticeable, and I don't mind at all. What I might do is I might paint the bolts black to make it more discreet, but honestly, it's not bad at all. It went a lot easier than I thought it would be, especially given the terrible instructions from Uhaul. I think what they're trying to say is just pay us to install it for you. That's where you really want your money. But once you kind of figure out how it's meant to go in, everything falls into place. So next thing is to get a bike rack and test it out. So if this video has been useful to you, please give me a like, and thanks for watching.